Manchester United hardly out the news, and of course we accept that is a fact. That Manchester United being the kind of club and the scale of the club that it is. Erik Ten Hag has said that he's on the same page as Sir Jim Ratcliffe after holding, quotes, many hours of positive talks with the club's new investor. It was very positive, I have to say, said Ten Hag. We had a long meeting, so many hours we sat together. So, obviously, they touched base on a whole variety of different topics, and apparently not only was the meeting lengthy, it was extremely productive. One wonders, will there be another name at the table? Will there be another face in the next meeting? As and when that happens, because talkSPORT understands that Manchester United are growing increasingly confident of luring Newcastle sporting director Dan Ashworth away from the North East to head up Sir Jim Ratcliffe's overhaul at Manchester United. Certainly when he was appointed at Newcastle, Ashworth was extremely optimistic about the future.
I think probably my role is a bit project driven, really. It's to go in. I was first one at West Bromwich Albion to go in and do the job, and the chairman had said wasn't really sure how he wanted it to look, but try and build some infrastructure around recruitment, academy, medical, first team. Similar at the FA, because that was St George's Park. That was a new build, new training ground, if you like. And then Brighton, again, first technical director there, and they wanted to try and connect some of the strands across the club. So I think any new project is something that really excites me, really inspires me to certainly be there towards the beginning of the project as well. And obviously with new owners and with Eddie coming in and some of the aspirations around some of the things we want to try and drive through with women's academy, training ground, the first team as well, it was something that was really attractive. But from a sporting director context, very similar to my role as technical director at my previous employment, is really, I always describe it as sitting in the middle of the wheel. So my job is to sit in the middle of the wheel and just connect via the spokes, if you like, the different departments of the club, and just try and align everything as best I possibly can. So just to try and really drive all of the football areas of the club, bring them all together, try and get everybody working to the same song, to the same vision, to the same mission, and try and get the club where we all want to be.
So that was Dan Ashworth back in June 2022 on his appointment on the day he took over at Newcastle United in that position. Simon, you probably hear there, he says any new project to be involved in it excites me, inspires me. This is new. This is a new era with Sir Jim Ratcliffe over the door at Carrington and at Manchester United. It's recognised that Ashworth in his field is best in class, which is a phrase you often use. And when it comes to best in class, you want best in class. Can you see United getting their man?
Yes, I probably can, because of the nature of Man United's lure. I mean, Newcastle is not to be underestimated. I was not a fan of Ashworth's. You know, there was a lot of noise made about him when St George's was put forward, and I thought, oh, he's one of those. But one of those guys that takes more credit than they're entitled to. But I have to say, if you look at the body of work that he's done, it's difficult to argue that there isn't substance behind what he does. These directors of football, I met Kevin Felwell, who's the Everton director of football at the Spurs-Everton game. They're quite unassuming characters. They're not bold, shoulders back, chest out sort of larger-than-life characters. They're more technical, more data-driven, more looking at the reality of what they're building for, the overall perspective of recruitment, whether it's for the academy, whether it's for the first team, whether it's for disposals, whatever. They've got a bigger, more strategic job than sort of being these balls-out verbose individuals. But you can't argue with Ashworth's credentials. You can't argue with the philosophies that he put into Brighton. Now, the legacy that he's left, it doesn't go on forever.
No.
But the players that were recruited at Brighton, the strategies that were put in place, Matthew Benham of Brentford and Tony Bloom of Brighton, whilst they can't be in the same room together, are cut from the same cloth. Because they have very similar mentalities about data and evaluating and doing what I believe is absolutely appropriate, which has been long since undermined by people not doing their jobs, having due diligence about everything they do it for. Everything has a reason. There's a reason for doing it. And I think Ashworth, quite frankly, is at the top of his game and is at the top of this particular sphere and this circle. So I'm not surprised. He'll interview well. And if United want him, United will get him. Because there'll be no... I know you've got the Saudis. I know you've got enormous amounts of money at Newcastle.
If you're the owners of Newcastle, are you not disappointed if he was to turn tail and go to Manchester United right now? I see this fella as he's been remarkably successful, but I do see him as a career man. He's had the FA job. He did that from 2012. He's in it quite a while. I don't really see him as the type of person who will just turn his back on a club, at the beginning of a project.
But he does.
Effectively, this is 13 months in.
But he does. He went from West Bromwich Albion to Brighton relatively quickly. He does 2-year cycles. He does 2 years.
So this could be the time.
Director of football was pretty well his first director of football role. Before that, it was.
He was. Because director of football roles only become on vogue in the last 10 years. Yeah. Previous to that, his background was to be at Peterborough. So he's got a background of developing himself and understanding the other side of football, which is the recruitment of players and making sure that people are bought for a reason and sold for another. And the guy, to my mind, I thought there was a lot more credit being attributed to people at St George's than was due. I have to say, if you look at the body of work he's done, wherever he's done it, and the coherency of his thinking, you are making an argument that he is as good as they get.
If he's a star player then within their group, why is it that Manchester
Different
United
scale,
go public?
Though,
why are they going public? I think it's disruptive for Manchester United to do this to Newcastle.
Well, not really. Man United's
they paid £5 million for his services.
But Man United's job is not to maintain the well-being at Newcastle. Man United's job is to maintain the well-being of Man United.
Personally, I think he should stay where he is.
The difference is with this one, Jim. It isn't going into Newcastle where it's a project where people's expectations are lower. It isn't going to West Bromwich Albion where people's expectations are lower. It isn't going into Brighton where people's expectations are lower. This is the top of the tree. This is where the scrutiny comes in. This is where you get to play with £100 million transfers.
You don't think that's going to happen at Newcastle then? Now they're starting
it hasn't
to slip.
so far, has it?
Okay,
they've been good signings up to now. If he plays a part in that,
we shall see if Ashworth does stick or twist, whether he stays at Newcastle or heads to Manchester United.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.